Dana, the first 5 weeks of 2020, you get a Conor McGregor fight, you get a Jon Jones fight, right? I mean, that's got to be a pretty awesome start for the company for the year.
Yeah, not bad. So, usually the beginning of the year is rough on us, but because of ESPN scheduling, it's completely changed our ecosystem. So, yeah, the beginning of the year is going to be strong from here on out.
No doubt about it. Give me an idea of Jon Jones. I mean, we talk about him as the GOAT, right? I mean, a lot of people believe he's the greatest of all time. Right. Is he a superstar? Is he the big money draw? I mean, obviously Conor's the biggest. Mm-hmm. But is Jon up there, or is this just still a way to go?
Of course he is. We just broke the record at the Toyota Center with this fight. So, yeah, Jones is a star. What happens is with these different fighters, when you have different guys, they bring out different groups of people. You know what I mean? A completely different group of people show up to watch Jon Jones fight on TV and live. Same thing for Conor, same thing for Nate Diaz, and the list goes on and on. It's always a different group of people.
You said a record-breaking gate. What can you share the numbers? What are we looking at?
We did 3.2 million, still a couple hundred tickets to move, and we're opening up some production kills right now. So it'll be well over 3.2 million, and yeah, we'll have the record.
Very cool. Give me a sense of what you think of Dominic Reyes. I mean, you've seen a lot of contenders try against Jon Jones, but man, he had a little bit of a swagger at the on-sale press conference. He's rolling around with some confidence this week. I mean, what do you think about him as a contender?
Yeah, no, listen, this guy's the real deal. The biggest problem with this fight is that enough people don't know how real this guy is. He's young, he's fast, he hits hard, and he's undefeated. And he's got, like you said, a ton of confidence going into this fight and believes he's going to beat Jon Jones. This is a tough fight for Jon. If Jon gets through this fight, I mean, if you look at the way this guy has treated himself outside of the octagon, usually those stories all end the same. When you do the things that Jon has done, you don't last. There's no longevity in that. But this guy's so talented and such a freak of nature that he continues to dominate.
Yeah. Do you feel like maybe he has turned a corner, though? This does seem like a week. In some ways, like how Conor was different last week, Jon seems like, more mature this year, more reserved, more, the way he's doing that. Do you think he's turned a corner, maybe?
Listen, there's truth to it. You've seen it in every sport. Too rich, too famous, too young. And when that happens to you, there are consequences to it. There's a good side and a bad side. Some people can deal with it, and some people can't. And but then you eventually get to a point where you hopefully get yourself under control, and you start to take it, champ. You start to take it serious and basically get your shit together. And usually by the time you do that, it's too late. Your window has closed and it's over. But that's not the case for Jon Jones.
No doubt. Corey Anderson is in action in a couple of weeks. He feels like he should be next in line if he wins over Jan in New Mexico. Are you feeling that way too? Are you looking at that as a number one contender fight, at least as far as Corey Anderson is concerned?
I don't know off the top of my head, but who I think is next in the division. We'll see how. First of all, just to say, oh, this guy, if he wins, is next. Let's see how the fight plays out. Let's see how he looks. See how it goes.
Yeah.
But I am well aware that he has been pissed off for a very long time about not having a title shot.
No doubt. The co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko, I want to ask you what you think she means to the women's side of the sport right now. I mean, she lost to Amanda Nunes, so maybe tough to call her the GOAT, but I feel like in a lot of ways it's like 1A and 1B because she's beating everybody else except for somebody that's 20 pounds bigger than her. What do you think Valentina means to the sport right now?
It's true. I mean, if you ask anybody right now, about the women's division, they'll tell you Amanda Nunes, Valentina, and Wei Lee. I mean, realistically, the three champions in each division are as badass as can be, so it's fun.
Yeah, she's tearing through contenders right now. If she stays victorious again, I mean, do you see her future at 125? Does the trilogy with Nunes make sense to you at any point? Does Wei Lee make sense? I mean, there's talk about maybe she moves up. What does make sense for you?
All of them. You're right. All of those can happen. But what I really like to see people do is stay in their weight class, continue to knock people off, continue to build your legacy and your name, and then when the time is right, those big crossover fights will happen.
Yeah. Israel Adesanya is going to be in town. Obviously, there's a lot of talk between Adesanya and Jon Jones. Potentially maybe early, I don't know. But is that a fight that interests you? I mean, I know you just said people stay in their lane and their divisions, build their name. But, I mean, those two guys facing off, do you have interest there?
You got to look at, Israel right now just won the title. He's fighting Yoel Romero because he wants to, which I respect. Then he's got Costa after that. And then we'll see who's in line after. He's got some fights to win before we start looking at Jon Jones. Jon Jones is a very nasty, fighter and much, much bigger than Israel Adesanya. So I think Israel's got a few more guys to knock down before he even thinks about Jon Jones.
Yeah, no question. Last couple ones. I hadn't heard your opinion yet on the Stephen A. Smith take on Cowboy Cerrone and all the Joe Rogan back and forth that went. Did that bother you at all? I mean, your broadcast partner, I know you love ESPN, but calling one of the beloved guys, a future UFC Hall of Famer, you say maybe he quit on that night. What were your take on those comments?
Yeah, I didn't hear him. I didn't hear what he said. I know that there was some stuff going back and forth, which is going to happen. One of the things when we bought and built the UFC, that we always did, being fight fans ourselves. I'm a huge fight fan. Lorenzo was a huge fight fan. Joe Rogan is a huge fight fan. And one of the things that we hated was on HBO boxing and some other boxing that they would do, listen, you're tuning in and buying the pay-per-view because you love these guys and you respect these fighters and you're a fan of the sport. The last thing you want to do is hear somebody ripping them apart. It's not, I'm not into it. Rogan's not into it, and you don't see that in the UFC. There'll be times when I'm pissed off at a guy and I'll voice my opinion on what he did or whatever, or if a fight is really bad or somebody did something. But what we don't do is when a fight is over and a guy loses, we don't go in and rip them apart. Just not our style. It's not, we're fans. We don't do it. So I think Rogan was reacting to that because, that's our philosophy here. And, for Stephen A. Smith, that's his thing. That's what he does. It's going to happen. You're always going to have people who have difference in opinions, and especially when you have two very opinionated guys like Stephen A. Smith and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no question. Last thing for me, how close are we to knowing Conor McGregor's next move? Usman and Masvidal were talked about, but that's obviously off the table, both those guys at this point. I mean, you've been saying the fight to make for Conor is the Khabib rematch if he gets through Ferguson. Are you sticking to that right now?
There was never any talk about Usman or Masvidal. That was Conor. That's madness. That's crazy. So Conor's thing right now is Conor thinks Tony and Khabib isn't going to happen, and he wants to slide into that spot. So we'll see how this plays out.
Does he have a deadline? Like I could do it a week out, or it has to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
He is ready, willing, and able to slide into that spot if it becomes available.